Gentlemen, welcome back to your shop. Wife asked me, I need to do this thing. We've got the new cage for the Parrot. It had these shitty little casters on the bottom. So the plan is to put new wheels on the Parrot. And as you can see, just zoom you in there. Focus. Already, that's not working. So just putting a wheel down at the bottom again is also not going to work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a subframe with wheels, and then the cage will stand on the subframe. And let's see what we can get to. I'm going to take a couple of measurements and I'll get you in the shop. Alright gents, so the measurement we need is 1030 by 770. Okay, I'm going to keep that there, make sure that we've got it right. I'm going to start marking up and cutting the steel. Okay, so first of all we're marking out the frame. What was that, 1030 by 770, something like that. And the short sections are actually the little pockets that the birdcage would fit into. I think they're 60 mm long. All of this is 1 inch by 1 inch square tubing, 1.6 shell. So what's it? I think it's 1/32 of an inch. Can't remember. Leave in the comment below. How many inches is 1.6 millimeters? Next item that I'm saving up to buy is a cut-off saw. All my life I've just been gunning it with a little angle grinder, and I think it's about time, because it wastes a hell of a lot of time to grind everything off like I'm doing here. And over here I'm just mitering the corners, so I'm just cutting the miters on the corners. Once again, small little grinder, it takes forever. But I haven't been fabricating for a while. Sorry about that. So I haven't got the whole production line running quite as well as I normally would. Just checking the miters there. Using a little welding magnet. I find these things, they've got their place. They're probably not the best thing, but they do have their place. So I use them fairly often, especially on the tubing that's fairly light. The rest I'm just tacking the corners together, making sure that we're lining up everything correctly. And as you can see, my fabrication table is getting too small, so but I can't build a bigger fabrication table because I haven't got a big enough shop. My shop is actually, I think my shop qualifies as a micro shop. Here we go. As you can see, I do the welding in very short runs, stopping in between. That's just to keep the heat out of the tubing. Like I said, the 1.6 millimeter tubing, you'll burn a hole in it before you blink your eyes. So I tend to just get out of it and let the heat dissipate, instead of trying to fight that hot piece of metal that's way too thin to actually weld like that. It's non-structural, so I'm not that worried about it. And then in between I do let it cool down. Otherwise you're just going to start frustrating yourself. Inside corner, a lot of heat going into the part. That corner I actually burnt through and I had to patch it up. And now the outer edges, which is probably some of the most difficult portions. I don't think you'll get it welded, arc welded, or in one go. I've tried how many times and I had to go back and patch it. Once we've got everything welded up, I'm just using a flap disc. I think it's 100 grit or 60 grit flap disc, just to flatten off the welds, leaving the inside corner as it is. Just using wire wheel, getting everything done. Okay, so next up we are going to weld the feet in, where I'm going to drill the hole for the caster to sit on. So that's going to come in there. I just rounded the edge so that we can get into that weld that we just made. So I'm just going to tack it on the top, and then we're going to flip it around and weld it on the bottom. Okay, and so as I said, they're starting to tack it in just on the corners on the inside. and one in the right in the corner, making sure that I've got everyone tacked up. These tacks aren't that heavy because we'll be welding over them in just a while, and just getting the plate to sit where it should. And now we're doing the underside. As you can see, I'm doing about half runs on each plate. Once again, that's just to keep the heat, well, to minimize the heat input into the pot, and making sure that we don't warp and burn. Well, warp's not the major concern. Burn through and burning a hole in it, that's the one that's really bugging me. And once we've got everything through and cool down a bit, then we can do the last little section. Also doing it in 2 runs. I'm not that good. I'm battling to get the welding rod around the corner, so I'll rather stop. Take some pictures for Instagram and kind of finishing off the rest. Taking the slag off with a grinder as we go along, just so that I can see where I've got some inclusions or porosity or whatever the case may be. Here we go. Once again, cool down. Now we are fitting the little pockets that the birdcage would go into. This is a very difficult weld. There, I burned a hole in it again. Welding right on the edge of a 1.6mm square tube, mild steel square tube. Maybe I'm just not that good of a welder, but that's something that I battle with. Here I'm sitting out and making sure that we are got everything aligned. It's fairly tight tolerance. The gap between the cage fitting and not fitting is about, I think it was, I measured 3 or 4 millimeters. So I really had to get this one right on the money. Actually took a bit of a chance. Honestly, I didn't think I was going to get it right the first time, but I did. So sometimes luck's on your side. Once again, doing short little, almost couple of tacks in a row, making it a weld at the end of the day. Once again, just to keep the heat out. Measuring, making sure. Measuring, making sure. Measure 100 times and you still get it wrong every second time. There we go. Little die grinder with a wire brush on it, just making sure we get everything out before we start painting. Over here we're marking the holes for the casters. Drilling them first a 6mm pilot hole and then a 10.5. It's a 10mm bolt, so 10.5 at the end, but I think I've got the most blunt drill bit in the world. Took like forever to get these 4 holes drilled. And over here we're just slapping a coat of paint on. Paint that I'm using is a steel coat, can't remember the name, but it's got its own primer in it, so you can just spray it on. You don't have to prime it first and then paint it. Seems to be working well. I've had success with it in the past. There's a parrot in the cage. That was actually taken before we put the wheels on. Normally she's in the play area next to the house where it's a big open area. This is in the evening when she should be starting to settle down and eat dinner and whatnot. Pretty bird. She could be screaming. Guys, if you ever want a cockatoo, make sure that you do your homework before you get the cockatoo, because you might, as much as you might enjoy it, you might just as well get rid of the bird, because it's a buttload of work looking after these big parrots. But if you decide to do it, it's an absolute ball owning one. This one was actually a rescue that we took in. Had a lot of work to do with us. Gentlemen, there we go. Little frame down at the bottom. Lifted the cage about 4 inches. But nonetheless, I think it's going to work much better. As you can see, you can easily pull it around. And I think that's the end of this video. If you've made it thus far, thanks for watching. As always, please rate, comment, subscribe. And as always, stay safe.